If you've read Murata Sayaka's big international hit, Convenience Store Woman, you know, she has this really unique kind of detached way of looking at things, identity, conformity, all the weirdness of modern life. Her main character, Kaiko, she finds this sort of peace, right, by basically becoming the convenience store.
Yeah, she becomes the role. It's like this liberation, but through this incredibly disciplined, almost clinical approach.
Exactly.
But what's really fascinating is where Murata says she found the inspiration, or maybe the permission to write like that. She gives so much credit to this other writer, Matsuura Rieko. Fiercely original, maybe not as widely known everywhere.
Oh yeah, and it wasn't just a passing mention, was it?
Not at all.
Murata was super specific. She said reading Matsuura's novels, things like P's Apprenticeship and Dog Body, literally took her soul. How did you put it?
To a place of my own creature, neither human nor female.
Wow. Neither human nor female.
Yeah.
It's quite a statement.
It really is. That's like the ultimate mission statement, isn't it? It's like saying Matsuura gave her the tools to just dismantle these fundamental categories we live by.
Okay, so that's what we're diving into today then.
That's the plan. We're looking at let's call it the intellectual engine behind that feeling of liberation. It's Matsuura Rieko's 1994 essay collection for gentle castration.
For gentle castration.
Right.
And our mission here is to kind of trace the ideas in these essays.
Yeah, find the philosophical blueprint. Matsuura wrote them mostly during the 1980s, and you get the sense she wasn't just, observing culture. She was actively trying to write the code for a new way of being.
A whole new operating system.
Pretty much. And these essays, they cover the whole decade, really reflecting that period of intense cultural observation and critique. She talks about everything, big global things like USA for Africa, but also really sharp social observations.
But the really cutting stuff is about gender and power, I take it.
That's where it gets really intense.
Yeah. And it kicks off with some pretty raw anger, aimed at a certain kind of male attitude.
Oh, absolutely. It's captured perfectly in this one essay, Phone Call from X, or Two Angry Scum Women.
Okay, tell me about that one.
Well, it's structured like this scorching conversation between two women, just called X and M. They're venting, basically, about these specific, really arrogant guys they keep running into, like in bars. It feels almost like reading someone's furious diary entry, but shared.
Right, and what's the core issue with these guys? It's not just that they're jerks, presumably.
No, it's deeper. They use gender expectations like a weapon. The main problem, the grievance, is that these men use really traditional ideas of femininity to, police women. So if X or M act independently or show they're intelligent or just speak their minds, boom, they get labeled scum women.
Scum women, okay. So you step outside the box, and that's the label you get.
Exactly. The implication is you failed at being a proper woman. And the only way back, according to these guys, is through sexual submission. There's this line where one man actually tells X something like, "I'll turn a rude woman like you into a proper woman."
Wow, okay. So your worth as a woman is basically tied to whether you submit to male authority.
That's the message. It's what Matsuura identifies as this completely penis-centric worldview.
Yeah.
It's all about control.
Yeah, that's not really defining femininity, is it? It's about wielding power.
Precisely. And X and M, they basically conclude they're so far outside this whole controlling system that they might as well be a different species. They almost embrace being called scum. It becomes like a badge signifying they're radically other.
So they reclaim the insult.
Kind of, yeah. And that resistance, that absolute refusal to play the game by those rules, that's really the jumping off point for everything else in the book. It explains why Matsuura doesn't just stop at complaining about annoying men. She channels that rage into her philosophy.
Okay, so she starts with that social critique, that anger. Where does she take it philosophically? If the old definitions are the problem, what's the big category she targets?
Well, she goes right for the core. She aims to dismantle what she calls the genital-centric view of love.
The genital-centric view of love.
Yeah. Fundamentally, she was looking for a path towards something she termed non-genital eros.
Non-genital eros.
Her whole goal was to completely disconnect desire, sexual energy, identity itself from the necessity of, genital intercourse.
But how does that work? I mean, culturally, we're so trained to think desire leads to a specific physical act, a specific outcome, satisfaction. If you remove that endpoint, what's left?
What's left is the pursuit itself, staying in the desire. This is where she critiques the idea of climax, or akume, as she calls it. It's in the essay Departure to Castration. And she frames the sexual climax as a huge failure, almost tragic.
Wait, hang on. Climax is a failure. that seems to go against, like, everything usually said about sexual freedom.
Right. But for Matsuura, think about the buildup, the foreplay. She sees that as this special time where you're kind of collecting time, suspending reality. You're existing purely in desire.
Okay, I can see that suspension.
But the climax, that's spending it all. It's an expenditure. And for her, it's too much like the irreversible flow of life towards death. It's that moment time runs out.
Ah, okay. So it's like you build up all this potential, this energy, and then you cross the finish line, spend it all, and you're left with that melancholy, that post-coital sadness she talks about.
Precisely. That sadness is the feeling of being defeated by time. The attempt to escape time through sex actually fails right at the moment of completion.
So the real goal is to stay in that suspended state.
Exactly. To be suspended indefinitely in desire, that sweet spot, between wanting and getting.
She basically wants to live in the foreplay forever.
Kind of. She's seeking what she calls a negative akume, like an anti-climax, and you achieve it through what she terms wanton abstinence.
Wanton abstinence? That sounds like a contradiction.
It does. But it's about actively cultivating desire that isn't tied to the biological or social need for genital release. It's about keeping that energy flowing, free from reproductive duty or just following the script.
Okay. And I guess this philosophical idea connects directly back to identity.
Absolutely. If you reject the centrality of genitals and desire, you logically start rejecting defining yourself solely by your anatomy. She makes this point really sharply in the essay Liberation from Genitalia.
Right, and she uses an example there, doesn't she? Female bodybuilders.
Yes, exactly. Now you might think, okay, women building physical strength, that's liberating.
Yeah, that would be the standard assumption, power.
But Matsuura critiques them quite fiercely.
Really? Why wouldn't gaining visible physical power be liberating in her view?
Because for her, they're still performing an identity for someone else. She argues they're performing a barbaric farce aimed at men. By focusing so much on a type of strength that's measured against a male standard, she thinks they ironically end up highlighting femininity, not transcending it.
Ah, I see. They're still trapped in that binary, performing within the rules set by the male gaze.
Exactly. Liberation for Matsuura has to come from within. It has to be untethered from what others expect or judge.
Okay, that makes the distinction clear. It's not about having strength, it's about whose definition of strength or identity you're conforming to. So if the conventional feminine performance doesn't work, and trying to physically beat masculinity at its own game also doesn't work, where does she find a model for genuine liberation for this non-genital creature?
She finds it in a really interesting figure, the women's professional wrestler, Bull Nakano.
Bull Nakano, wow, that is unexpected, specific. Someone who's incredibly visible, very theatrical, but also hard to pin down.
Totally. Matsuura uses Nakano as this concrete example of liberation in that same essay, Liberation from Genitalia. She describes Nakano's body, tall, powerful, with this physique where fat conceals muscle as being gorgeous and powerful, but also hyper-feminine and wildly sexy all at once. Nakano is this living contradiction you just can't squeeze into one simple box.
She is the creature Murata felt Matsuura helped her find, existing outside the usual definitions.
Yes. Matsuura even calls Nakano a sex gang child.
A sex gang child.
Yeah, this figure who embodies this kind of eternal cuteness but also sensuality, and in doing so, just strips away the need for gender to be defined by genitals. Nakano becomes the physical proof of the agenital creature concept.
As a genital creature, okay.
Yeah.
And this whole line of thought, this path away from genital centricity, leads us to maybe the most provocative part of the collection.
It's definitely the most provocative and probably the most famous philosophical argument she makes. It's the elevation of the anus in the essay, The Anus Utopia on This Shore.
Right. The anus utopia on this shore. This is where she takes the agenital idea all the way.
Pretty much to its logical, if startling, conclusion. If the genitals are about utility, reproduction or spending desire, she holds up the anus as an organ of pure overabundance.
Overabundance.
Yeah. It's not strictly necessary in the same way, biologically speaking, for reproduction, but it's something valued, maybe since childhood, inherently there. It contrasts with the practicality of the genitals.
So she's setting up a contrast. The practical versus the symbolic, the philosophical.
Exactly. She kind of dismisses the genitals as just a boring main street. Practical, necessary for traffic, but totally conventional. The anus, though. She calls it the sex organ of the agenital gender.
Okay, let's pause on that phrase. The sex organ of the agenital gender. That means the gender category that exists completely outside the system defined by traditional sexual anatomy.
Correct, that's the idea. She says it's the nuclear core of the liberal childhood that persists within us. She defines it as this ultimate site of duality and therefore liberation. It's the exit and the entrance. It's both clean and unclean. It's completely unbound by the demands of the reproductive cycle or the gender roles tied to that.
So by shifting the focus, the center of identity and desire, to this place of duality, of overabundance, she's carving out the conceptual, even physical space for that creature Murata talked about, the one that's neither human nor female.
That's exactly it. She calls the anus the utopian place that miraculously liberates dreams in this body. This whole philosophical journey, rejecting genital focus, finding utopia in the agenital, embracing the creature, this is the intellectual inheritance that Murata Sayaka received. Matsuura laid out the framework.
It really is incredible, isn't it? How Matsuura's writing, which sounds so fierce, sometimes almost hostile, coming out of the 80s, how it offers such a deep challenge to our most basic categories, gender, sex, desire, maybe even what human means.
Yeah, and what really strikes you when you go back to this collection now is something Matsuura herself points out in her introduction. She mentions that when these essays first came out, they were often met with criticism or just silence.
Right. People didn't know what to do with them.
Exactly. The ideas were seen as too angry, maybe too scum, like in that essay title, or just too inverted, too far out for the mainstream back then.
And yet, look where we are now. You have this whole new generation of incredibly successful, acclaimed writers like Murata Sayaka. And they're not just referencing these ideas, they're embracing them. This freedom to be a creature is becoming central to best-selling, internationally recognized literature.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? It poses a question for you, listening right now. If these fundamental definitions, gender, sexuality, could be so radically challenged and reshaped by writers who went from being kind of ignored or dismissed to being celebrated, well, what other basic assumptions about human identity might be next on the chopping block? What's the next category waiting to be dismantled?